All right, let's dive into one of the most powerful stories of survival you'll ever come across. This is a raw, incredibly honest journey from the absolute bottom, from total despair to a hard-won hope, and it comes to us from the ancient text of Lamentations.
So we're jumping right in, and we're seeing this through the eyes of a figure that scholar Dr. Leslie Allen actually calls the mentor. Now, this mentor is speaking from his own past. He's remembering a crisis that completely devastated him, and he's telling this story to an audience that is right now going through their own suffering. He's basically looking them in the eye and saying, hey, I've been exactly where you are now.
And this is where he starts. I mean, this quote just hits you like a ton of bricks, right? There is zero sugarcoating here. This is a person in a state of profound, total hopelessness. So right from the get-go, we're not starting with a glimmer of light. Nope. We are in complete darkness.
So the big question is, how on earth did he get out of this? Well, to really get the climb, we first have to understand the pit. The mentor actually breaks down his rock-bottom experience for us, showing that it wasn't just some vague sadness. It was a series of specific, foundational things that were ripped away from him.
Just look at this breakdown. First, he lost peace, what the text calls shalom. You know, that deep feeling of a whole, satisfying life. Gone. Then he lost happiness, any sense of good fortune at all. Then, his future. He literally felt like his life expectancy was zero. He was as good as dead. And finally, and this one is maybe the most crushing, he lost hope. Any and all positive expectation from God. It was a complete and total system failure of the soul.
And listen to how he describes this feeling. He uses these incredibly visceral metaphors, wormwood and gall. He's not just saying he's sad. He's saying he feels poisoned from the inside out. It's like this bitter, burning acid reflux in his very soul. You can feel that, right? This isn't just an idea. It's a physical, all-consuming sensation of suffering.
And we really need to pay attention to the psychology here. His soul continually thinks of it. This isn't just a bad thought that comes and goes. No, it's an obsessive, inescapable mental loop. It's like his own mind has become a prison, just forcing him down, keeping him bowed low, unable to even look up.
Okay, so at this point, his audience is probably just nodding along thinking, yep, that is exactly how we feel. But this is where the entire story pivots. We're about to witness the moment that changes absolutely everything.
You have to put yourself there, right? Imagine the mentor at his absolute lowest point and his audience in theirs, and they're all asking this one question. Is this it? Is this the end of the line? Is despair the final word? Is there nothing else?
But this one little word changes everything. It's the hinge on which the entire story turns. It signals this complete reversal. And get this, not in his circumstances, but inside his own mind.
And here it is. But this I call to mind. This is so crucial. Nothing on the outside has changed. The crisis is still raging. The storm is still blowing. The change is an act of his will. He chooses to call something different to his mind. He shifts his focus, and that act alone is what creates hope out of thin air.
So what is this that he calls to mind? Well, it's not just wishful thinking or some kind of empty optimism. He builds his new hope on a solid foundation, a deep truth he had completely forgotten. But now he rediscovers it.
This here is his key insight. He realizes, okay, I've been experiencing God's wrath, sure, but that wrath is a temporary reaction to what's gone wrong. It's not who God is. God's permanent core nature, the ultimate reality, is steadfast love and compassion. It's like he had been confusing a temporary violent thunderstorm for the permanent vast sky. The storm was real, but the sky was always there behind it.
And where does he get this idea? Well, he remembers a specific story from Scripture. He thinks back to the golden calf incident. I mean, a moment of total, catastrophic failure. Logically, that should have been game over for them. But what happened next? God revealed his true nature as being merciful and abounding in steadfast love. So this old story suddenly becomes a lifeline, a promise. Even after the worst possible failure, a future is still possible.
This whole line of thinking leads him to one final, life-altering realization. And it's such a simple truth, but it becomes the absolute bedrock of his new perspective.
It's this simple. He realizes, wait a minute, I'm still alive. He used to think of himself as good as dead, but now he completely reframes it. Waking up each morning, the simple act of breathing, is not a curse, it's a gift. It's a sign of God's preserving grace. His cup isn't just half empty, it's also half full. The mere fact that he has survived is all the evidence he needs that God isn't finished with him yet.
Dr. Allen shares this beautiful modern story that makes this so clear. He was serving as a hospital chaplain, and he was praying over this tiny, very premature baby who looked impossibly fragile. He asked the nurse how the baby was doing, and she just looked at him and said, "Where there's life, there's hope." It's the exact same principle, isn't it? Survival itself holds the seed of a better future.
So we end here. The mentor's journey shows us that even when our circumstances feel completely overwhelming, we still have a choice about what we call to mind. His hope wasn't found in a change of scenery. It was found in a change of perspective, one that was grounded in a deeper truth he had just momentarily forgotten. So the question for us then is pretty clear. In the middle of our own darkness, what is the truth, the memory, the promise, the this that we can choose to call to mind?